Listen. So the time travel slasher genre continues to grow, which I think is pretty solid since these movies give you a good mix of sci-fi and horror. And this one mixes it in with a story about sisters. Pretty much the story follows a young sister who travels back in time and tries to stop the serial killer who took her sister's life, but it also may end up being someone who changes hers when it's revealed. It's a very simple movie that belongs on streaming, but it does wear all of its 2000s classics on its sleeve, which I thought was pretty decent, even if it doesn't reach those killer heights. So if you are interested, it is trending on Netflix. But from here on out, I'm going to be getting into full spoilers. Let me explain.
You would have been viral on Twitter.
What's Twitter?
So the movie begins in the ancient era of 2003 AD, where the seniors are throwing a party where Jeepers Creepers lives. At this point, they don't even have red Solo cups, their texts are literally on paper, and it's pretty much become the new 80s for movies. The problem with the party, though, is that all these kids are aware that there's a serial killer out there who literally just killed 2 of their classmates, and they still go out and cheers, not realizing they may be toast.
These kids have a death wish?
This is where we see Summer, who's been coasting it with her boyfriend, who she clearly doesn't want to be with, but because her best friend just died in the murders, she decides that she'd rather go out and be next than to stay home and be alone. There's also her study buddy Quinn, who does all the studying and the budding for her.
Is that why Quinn does your homework?
He offered. He's kind of like a brother to me.
The cops come in to crash the party before the killer does, but he's already found Summer in the bathroom, who's having trouble hiding because she's wearing 55 belts, 55 bracelets, and 55 trinkets, so he gets to her. And it's just crazy to think that a girl named Summer Fields died in the summer in a field. They then cut to the present in 2024, where her sister, 2 decades later, is prepping for the anniversary of the Sweet Lee slasher, someone who in 3 days ended up killing 14 teens. That's why the parents named Lucy after Summer's own middle name and have not even touched her room, trapping it in time with all of these callbacks. And honestly, it looks like this girl bought everything as seen on TV. Lucy then picks up a crazy letter signed E, like it came from a Pretty Little Liar, but hides it from her parents since they've gone completely blank since the death. The mom also stopped cooking entirely because that was something she used to do with Summer. And even with the early scenes, they shoot them so that it's from their depressed perspective, so they just decided to give the lighting crew a break and shoot it as ugly as possible. But even when she tells her parents that she got into NASA, they get bummed out because they don't want to lose another daughter.
Sometimes it feels like my life is a black hole.
They visit the memorial to leave something at the ofrenda, but Lucy came empty-handed, so when she goes to check in the car for something, she ends up hearing a laser gun going off in the barn, which she goes to go check on, and ends up zapping herself back in time. Now, who would leave a machine in the middle of some unbelievable. Lucy then gets beamed back to 2003, where they contrast everything from the present, where her town was completely falling apart, to her finally seeing it when it was booming.
2003. What is going on?
She even enters the high school, and it's pretty much just an entire music video. Like, they're sporting the Juicy Couture, they have the Heelys on where they're skirting to next period, and she even gets to see her sister in the halls dumping her boyfriend Ethan of 2 years. And that's kind of what causes everything, because those jocks then get so riled up, they want to take it out on the school nerd Quinn. Lucy meets up with him when she visits her same science teacher from the present, but he's obviously younger in the past, and pretty much asks him to explain time travel.
We're all time travelers. Yeah.
The jocks then try to throw Quinn in the river, but Lucy meets them near the Outer Banks and lays hands on them before they can baptize him. What's funny is how a lot of these movies are looking back at all the past decades, but they're doing it with like these rose-colored glasses. You know, they'll cut out a lot of words that were said, actions, the way people acted, and you can tell that it's always from the writers, because even with the present kids, they'll write stuff like this.
Ew, moles.
Lucy tells Quinn that she's from the future just by showing him an iPhone, which convinces him when he starts geeking out, but she's able to connect the dots and see that her sister's using him in order to get all of her homework done, so she kind of decides to do the same thing. She gets him to take all of the time machine pieces back to his garage lab, which is going to help for later, but they start figuring out that it's actually powered by sonar antimatter, and that just so happens to be the company that the dad works for. And after describing all of these paradoxes, they get so hungry, but this kid pulls out a Butterfinger basket.
I'm sorry.
Lucy ends up taking his job and goes to visit Summer and offers to help with the homework because she's smarter, and she gets to have her first full family dinner.
Your parents are just nothing like my parents.
She's going through that Barry Allen storyline where she's meeting a past that she never got to know, and she comes to find out how happy her parents used to be, and that they really only had a daughter because they had lost their first daughter.
Were you in an accident?
No,
But hey, they cope with an outfit montage and get into 2000s clothes. By nighttime, Lucy scoots over to the mall since that's where the first killings are occurring, and it also just so happens to be Summer's friends. And because it's an early 2000s horror movie, Brian goes first. And he also just rented American Psycho, so I don't know if it was a mistake that they put a phone in his pocket for the scene, or if he was just really excited to watch that movie. Lucy then saves his girlfriend, but the killer teleports to the bottom floor, and things escalate quickly. And not to mention, they've added a security guard to the kill count. She then breaks into her own place and reveals to her sister that she's her sister.
I'm your sister. I just haven't been born yet.
Lucy then shows her the pink note that she had put in her back pocket from earlier, I guess, past in the movie, and it was played off at first like it was a threatening letter, but in reality it came from Emmy. This is when Summer opens up that she's actually the reason why she had dumped Ethan, because even when her sister was telling her about her fake future where she married a husband, just the sound of that made her flutter. And it makes the letter stand out more because it is about Emmy coming out to her parents, while Summer just had all that pressure on her, and that's what got her grades to start slipping, not realizing, especially on a rewatch, that you kind of notice that the mom already knew. Because Emmy's next to die, they rush over to the museum to save her, but things get really complicated when she can't hear them.
If you knew something bad was gonna happen, would you try to stop it?
Well, yeah.
After saving her, Lucy gets to bond with her parents, and they're actually happy that she's going to NASA.
Thanks again for having me.
Put too much sauce on there.
Lucy then goes to the lab and finds the letter that Quinn never got to give Summer, and realizes that he's got like a massive crush on her, which is pretty obvious. But then she brings it up to her sister, and they bring up the whole paradox that either she saves her and Lucy doesn't exist, or lets Summer die so that she can be born. Because the only reason that the parents went through IVF for another child was because they were mourning Summer.
Felt like my life was defined by your death.
Lucy then sinks into the Space-Time Optics Nuclear Research Center with absolutely no problem since it's 03, and Quinn even joins her, and they find out that someone already took the antimatter that they're after, and they may be from the future. Not to mention, they may be saving high schoolers, but they keep adding more security guards to the list. Summer and Ethan end up going to the senior barn party together, but the moment she gets inside, she comes out and kisses Emmy in front of everyone. The killer then appears in the back part, and they reenact the opening scene, but this time Summer's fully accepted her faith so that her sister can live, but then Lucy drives the car into the barn, not knowing who's where in there.
It worked!
Now, I was already sure that it was going to be this kid from early on when he was asking questions about the serial killer, but they didn't want to know how he got caught. But then making the killer a future version of him, that's so goofy. They gave him the sun stains and everything, but it's still his baby face in there.
What's going on?
He's now having a one-on-one with himself where he points to the river dunking as his Nexus event, the canon thing that started it all. So the timeline would go, Summer breaks up with Ethan. Ethan gets told by Brian to just take it all out on Quinn, so they bully him into the water. He lives a miserable life, and conveniently on the same day, in 2024, decades later, when Lucy is at the same memorial, he sets up his invention of time travel to be in a random barn, kinda, and she goes back with him when she hears him using it. But not to get too nerdy here, wouldn't that version of him have a different life in the timeline where the sister's already dead? Like for a person who brings up all the issues with time travel, I don't know if he has a solid plan on what happens when he does kill the bullies and he has a different upbringing.
Traveling into the past is a horrible idea because you could create a paradox or multiple paradoxes.
It's also just funny to think that him getting curbed by a girl is what led to the discovery of time travel. But it gets worse. I'll explain later. Quinn then threatens to kill him by hurting himself, but Lucy chucks them both back to the future. They then have a full fight in front of a couple of Teslas, so it's all filmed for evidence, but it being in a parking lot continues to show how much more this town is changing and that they even took over a barn. Lucy then beats him in a shocking turn of events and notices that he has an extra pack of antimatter that he was going to use in order to close his loop. But she goes a full 360 instead and decides to stay in the past. And I guess that's just her taking the science teacher's advice.
Don't let your life just happen to you. Take control of your future.
It is interesting how they play with timelines because it isn't going off of the whatever happened rules. Every little change creates another reality. And in the parking garage one, her parents didn't even recognize her there.
Started thinking that maybe where I'm meant to be is here.
But my thing is, if it's multiple timelines, then girl, you did leave your parents out there somewhere. Like, not only is it bad that these two had their firstborn die on them, but then they misplaced the replacement daughter. They lost them both at the same memorial site. Honestly, considering that this is like my sister's timekeeper, there has to be a version where Summer just asks her parents for another sibling, and maybe there is a branch where it's just them, but even then, I guess it would be a bunch of twigs. Instead, Lucy stays in 2003 with her sister and gets adopted by her own parents, who actually do support her going to NASA, even though she has no papers or credentials, but I guess it's 03, she could just pull a catch me if you can. or put on the lottery, or the Red Sox next year. She also decides to start dating her sister's killer, but the non-incel version, which is definitely weird considering you do know his darkest side. So how are you going to break up with a man who waited years to create time travel to get back at an ex who wasn't even his ex? Not to mention, they say that he created her technically, so he's pretty much her daddy?
You created me.
Nah, like I saw the D&D figurines. This is weird science stuff going on here. He really fell in love with a girl who then didn't want him, so he killed her and accidentally created a time-traveling girlfriend for himself?
Really? Well, okay. Yeah.
In the end, Lucy's now the younger older sister, Summer has a spring fling going on, and they all gather together to have an infinite loop of breadsticks. Thank you all for checking out this video. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below in the comments section, especially with time travel movies. Which ones would you recommend? Which ones are your favorite? Also, a quick shout out to our video sponsor, Skillshare, because as these movies show, you're never too old to go back to school, but you can choose what classes you want. It's the online learning platform everyone knows that's filled with thousands of lessons, and of course your favorite YouTubers teaching you how to YouTube. They've got everything from classes on film, animation, and design, all taught by industry experts and creatives in their field, and built so that you can start at whatever level you want and then rise up to being a pro. My personal recommendation would be MKBHD's series titled YouTube Success that breaks down everything you need to know from editing, scripting, all the different aspects when it comes to uploading and how to maintain a channel. Plus, it has an easy to follow layout where it lets you discuss ideas with other people. They've also improved their classes with smart categories, meaning that you can follow along with your progress bar better, but also it tailors your page to your interests, so it's like having your own digital teacher. The first 500 viewers to sign up through my link in the description get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so if you're interested, click the link down below and support the channel by learning a new thing or two. Other than that, let me know what you thought about this movie or what other streaming stuff you want to see me cover, and until next time, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll send you a pair of heels.